Welcome, everyone. It's 6 o'clock on Monday night, and you're listening to the 68th installment of the Age Out Angels Radio Hour on www.hamiltonradio.net, Channel 2. I'm your host, Greg Rapport. I'm the founder and executive director of Age Out Angels, a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Age Out Angels provides one-to-one mentors to vulnerable youth for the purpose of coordinating the care and services that they need to survive. We try to help youth avoid some of the horrible pitfalls that they're likely to face if they don't have a proper safety net. This program is brought to you every week at the same time, courtesy of Doc G, William Saunders, Ruben Rodriguez, and all the fine people here at Hamilton Radio who most graciously allow us to use this airtime. Doc G is on the big board tonight, along with Robin. Greetings to both of you. Happy New Year, Doc.
Happy New Year.
It's good to see you, pal. It feels like it's been forever. We were off for 2 weeks, right? When's the last time that's happened? Off for 2 weeks. What we'll have to do is change our day and time so that we coincide with Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve again for next year. Thank you so much at home for tuning in. We're so glad to have you. We've put together what I hope you will find to be an insightful and compelling view of conditions affecting the child welfare system. So get ready, because tonight on the Radio Hour, two great guests with me. Catherine Mitch, program director of an organization called Literacy New Jersey, will be here to talk about, well, a lot of things, but partially what happens when people who have high school diplomas but don't have any skills find themselves in the workforce and find themselves in a position where they need to move forward into that workforce. And so what do they do? And she has some interesting solutions for that, and also for folks who have English as a second language. There's a wonderful little cohort of people that her organization serves that I haven't heard before being served. So it's really kind of neat. And then later in the program, I'm going to introduce you to Jessica Jamie Walters. Jessica is I characterize as a brave soul who has agreed to come on the program and tell us what it's like to grow up with the conflict of gender identity and her transition later in life from male to female, and sort of the trials and tribulations that go along with that. Like, you know, we talk a lot about the child welfare system here, and if you can imagine what it's like to be a teenager, think back in your memory bank to when you were a teenager and all of the problems that every teenager encounters, trying to fit in, you know, trying to do well in school without anyone knowing it, so that you can remain cool, and all the things that go along with being a teenager and going through puberty. Add a gender crisis on top of that, and see how many points that's worth on a stress test. And of course, you know what that leads to is a lot of LGBTQ youth, the highest percentage of homeless suicide in the United States right now. So tell your friends to get on Facebook right now. Go to my name, Greg Rapport, hit that share button. Or, hey, email everyone in your address book and tell them to go to hamiltonradio.net Channel 2 right now. Tell them now. And tell the world what we're doing here. It is so sad to me that topics like literacy and topics like the challenges facing LGBTQ plus youth get so little attention. I mean, so little attention. And what they need is to be shared with the whole world. And thank goodness for internet radio, because we're actually reaching the whole world. So you can do that. You can help us do it. Don't keep this private to yourself. Help us share it. Hit the share button on Facebook right now and tell your friends. And while you're doing that, let me remind you that we're here every Monday from 6 to 7 p.m. with the Age Out Angels Radio Hour. We have a great lineup of guests coming up. Next week, January 14th, it's going to be an amazing show. Nicole Kilberg, an attorney from New York State, will be here to blow the lid off of the inadequate representation that she noticed foster youth receive in Dutchess County, New York. This created a huge stir when we taped this program, and I can tell you that you are not going to want to miss it. And then on January 21st, Trenton area legendary broadcaster Jacques Howard will be here to offer his unique perspective on what ails the inner city and what we need to do to make it strong again. That's just the next two shows. It just gets better and better and better in 2019. So be sure to tune in every Monday at 6 p.m. for our unfiltered look at the child welfare system and the truth. This is where you come to get the whole truth. I promise you will not hear anything that you hear tonight on the network nightly news. You will not hear that. This is the only place you can get it. And if you want to participate in the conversation tonight, you can call in. If you're watching on Facebook, the phone number is on the bottom of the screen. If you're listening on Hamilton Radio, the number is 609-807-2492. 609-807-2492. I see Nicole is out there listening. Frank is out there listening. Great to have you guys on board tonight. I do need to tell you just a little bit more, a little housekeeping here of what's going to happen after this show and for the next 7 or 8 weeks. This is actually our last live broadcast. The next 7 or 8 shows have been pre-recorded. And what that does is it enables us to sort of go to other places because, as you might be aware, there are youth everywhere who need help. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we keep valuable information coming out to you. So we recorded 7 shows. And the fact is there are so many different angles to the child welfare story. It all starts with the locale where many youth grow up, where trauma is a part of their daily lives. And trauma is at the root of a lot of the situations that occur in the child welfare system. And it continues through high school and unstable home life. And so there are 2 sort of basic quests. One is to just understand what all the angles are. And the other is to see all the nonprofits and learn about people who are trying to make a difference. And I can tell you that in the next 7 or 8 shows, we're going to be touching every single one of those bases in the pre-recorded shows. And here's the cool part. When you listen to this show next week, you and I will be listening or watching it at the same time. Just because I won't be here doesn't mean I won't be watching the show, right? So I'll be watching the show on Facebook right with you or listening on Hamilton Radio. And then if you want to, you can write into the comments field. You won't be able to call in because the show's pre-recorded. But you can write into the comments field on Facebook. And my guests will be watching the show as well. So both my guests and I will be able to answer your comments and dialogue with you during the show in real time. So that's the kind of cool advantage of preparing the show and in advance and broadcasting a pre-recorded show. So the show will be pre-recorded, but the discussion will be live. Okay, moving on. I want to take a few minutes and talk a little bit about domestic violence and challenge your thinking caps, if you'll indulge me. We spent a whole month on this topic in October, but just because October was Domestic Violence Awareness Month doesn't mean we don't stay aware of it throughout the year. It's not something that just goes away. Throughout October, we talked about it in sort of general terms. You know, what are the warning signs? What are the different categories of domestic violence? Now I want us to take a micro view. I want us to look at 2 specific cases because, you know what, there's always a little gray area. People are human and they don't just always fall into the parameters of theory. And doctors have to deal with this all the time. So what I'm going to tell you about now are 2 specific cases, 2 scenarios that presented to 2 different doctors, 2 primary care physicians, during regular office visits. And I know I have my opinions about these, and I'd like to hear if any of you out there have an opinion about how to handle these situations. You can call in or you can write a comment into the comments field of my Facebook page. But this is a little radio quiz called Pretend You're the Doctor. So you are the doctor. They have to deal with stuff like this all the time. These are real stories. Remember, you are the doctor. Case number 1. An 18-year-old woman presents for an examination accompanied by her 27-year-old boyfriend. She's pregnant and living in a mobile home with her partner. She is strongly considering giving up the baby for adoption because of financial and other reasons. She revealed that she had been beaten by her father from preschool age until 13. Her parents then divorced. She says that her present partner had, quote, slapped her around on several occasions, and that once she was accidentally dragged by his truck during an argument. There's always, I know what everyone's thinking right now. Dragged by his truck? Are you serious? There's always something that follows this. So stay with me, okay? Here's what happened there. He had apparently, according to her, he had slammed the driver's door, started the truck, and put it in gear, reportedly without realizing that her dress was caught in the car door. So that's how she was dragged by a truck. That's also how Isadora Duncan died, if you follow 1920s ballet. But moving on, she tells you that she is not happy. She's not happy in this relationship, and in fact does not feel safe. However, she stated that she had no place else to go, and expressed optimism about the future because her partner had begun to attend church and stated that he wanted to be a good father. How would you respond? I feel like I should pause for a minute. Holly's out there listening to the show tonight. Hi, Holly. It's good to have you aboard. So how would you respond if you were the doctor in this situation? What are you thinking when she says that her father beat her from up to age 13 and that her present partner had slapped her around on several occasions? On several occasions had slapped her around. So, I'll tell you what my response is, and you could argue with me if you want on Facebook. Even though most of us would say I would have left the first time he hit me, like I wouldn't have been there for the second time, because that's a dividing line for most of us. Getting physically hit is a dividing line for most of us, probably. A lot of times, though, people who have been abused when they were younger, if they were beaten regularly, they sort of get it. They'll just sort of detach. Their personalities will detach. They'll take the beating. It's what they know. It's their normal. It's what they understand. And so, how would you advise this person who is now having a baby? Because I got to tell you, from what I've seen in the situations of domestic violence, having that baby is another sort of nail in the coffin, because once the baby is born, if someone wants to lord over you violently, they can use that baby as a pawn. They use the children as pawns in that game, and you get sucked deeper and deeper and deeper in. And so if I was the doctor and I was talking to this lady, I would very, very discreetly try to let her know about organizations that she could go to who would help her. You can't just leave. You can't just walk out the door. Pregnant woman, no money, right? It can't just, the boyfriend brought her to the doctors, so who knows what her transportation situation is. You can't just walk out the door into nothingness. You have to have a destination. And fortunately, there are all kinds of helplines and things like that that you can call today who will help you do that. Get you safe passage to places. And I would advise her to talk to one of the counselors in those places and find out what her options are, and at least just have an intelligent discussion. Then she could make an intelligent decision. And I would do that very discreetly without the guy knowing. Case number 2. A 45-year-old man presented to his physician with a complaint of worsening depression. He had been taking antidepressant medications for years and was receiving ongoing psychotherapy from a clinical social worker and attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. The patient complained of insomnia, loss of appetite, and thoughts of guilt and suicide since his spouse had kicked him out. He was especially concerned because she has multiple sclerosis and relies on him for some physical assistance, and in his opinion, she should not be left alone. Further discussion revealed that during an argument, he verbally threatened to harm her and threw a large lamp at her, but did not actually hit her. She called the police, had him removed from the home, and told him she would soon be filing for divorce. What do you think about that? What would you advise this gentleman to do? Clearly, he wants to go back in. He's ready for round 2. She seems pretty serious about getting rid of him at that point, right? So what would you do? And when I look at this, the only thing I can think of is he thinks that he's helping her. She relies on him for different things. And I just don't see how you can expect to be the caregiver for someone else when you are as messed up as he is. You've got to solve your own problems. He's facing depression. He's attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, insomnia, loss of appetite. He's like showing all these classic signs of somebody who needs help himself, not somebody who should be helping someone else. So those are my thoughts on those two things. And if you want to write into Facebook and tell me your thoughts, you're welcome to do so. You're also welcome to call in tonight. 609-807-2492 is the number. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, I'm going to introduce you to Catherine Mitch, Program Director of Literacy New Jersey. So I want you to take a moment, hit that share button on Facebook, and don't go away. We are back. If you're watching on Facebook, sitting next to me is Catherine Mitch. She's the Program Director for Literacy New Jersey. Catherine, welcome to the Age Out Angels.
I'm so glad to be here today.
We're so glad to have you. Was it at the Mill One meeting where I met you for the first time? Was that the first time?
Yes, with Trenton area stakeholders.
That's right.
And we were talking about what good things you want people to know about Trenton, what good things you want potential volunteers from Princeton University to know about Trenton.
That's right. We were briefing the people who run the student volunteer program at Princeton University, just so that they came in armed with a piece of realism.
Exactly.
Right, as they jump into the inner city and think they're going to change the world.
Well, that was part of it, but also to understand the rich history that Trenton has, that what Trenton looks like today is not how it's always been. But there's a beautiful Trenton out there that needs to be rediscovered.
That really is, yeah. Mm-hmm. And actually, you're sort of part of it. Like, your office is in Hamilton, technically.
It's technically in Hamilton, but
it's an old warehouse or manufacturing plant.
Yes.
Building.
A 100-year-old manufacturer of leather goods.
Wow.
Which has been now turned into meeting space for nonprofits and for socially conscious for-profit organizations.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I want you to give us the overview, just the elevator pitch sort of what Literacy New Jersey is, and then we'll drill down.
Sure. Literacy New Jersey is an organization that provides free instruction in basic reading, writing, speaking, and understanding English to adults throughout New Jersey. Now, I am the program director of the Mercer County affiliate, but we have 8 affiliates in our combined organization and another up to 22 affiliates throughout New Jersey that do this vital work.
Is it anywhere besides New Jersey? Is it in other states as well?
Yes, we belong to a national organization that's now actually an international organization called Pro-Literacy. It used to be called Literacy Volunteers of America, but then they realized that there are literacy problems throughout the world, and why shouldn't we band together with the expertise that we're learning about how adults best learn to read and write and speak and understand, to share that throughout the world and increase the literacy levels of people everywhere. Many
years ago, I had the pleasure of teaching an individualized instruction method to 4th graders. Okay? Yeah. And it was just a beautiful method. I mean, by working one-to-one with people, right? We were able to help young children who were behind, in their grade level, and ones who were ahead, we were able to really help them soar forward by doing it in that way. Now, you have a sort of similar approach to this, don't you, with a one-to-one?
Correct. We adhere to a collaborative approach to learning. So particularly with adults, they come with so many skills. They may not be able to read and write well, but they have many, many problem-solving skills. They have maybe spatial skills, music skills, all kinds of things. Let me just tell you one story. I met a gentleman who was functioning at about maybe a the equivalent of a first grade reading level. He could put together computers. He had such wonderful spatial skill
Yeah.
that he could put together a computer. But he couldn't read the word Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. And, he just really had no literacy skills. And yet, he also had a high school diploma.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
we're going to get to that in a minute,
Yeah,
because that's who I
yeah.
meet. I meet these
Yeah.
poor kids who actually have high school diplomas. We'll get there. We'll get there in a second. So how did you find out that he could do this with computers?
Most of
How'd you
most
learn
of
that?
our students contact us for help. And
Okay.
then in the intake process, we have a conversation with them. We ask them not only who they are and what they do, but we ask them, what do you want to do in the future that you cannot do right now because you can't read or write or speak or understand English well enough? And that opens up the conversation to develop that kind of individualized instruction that we were talking about before. We don't just say, oh, who are you and what do you like and what's your favorite color or things like that. We really get down to, how do you spend your life right now? And what would you change if you could? And what do you need in order to be able to make those changes? That's the conversation we have. Then we give that information to our tutors, and we also train our tutors in how to hold those conversations with their students. And they go out and pull real life materials from the workplace, from the community bulletins, from their children's schools. They pull that together and they say, well, let's use this as the material that we're going to help you use to learn how to read and write better.
So it puts it into more practical, realistic context.
And an immediate and relevant context as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, what you're describing here is what these people never got in school.
Right. It was boring for
Right.
them in school. They were told, oh, now we're going to learn about the ancient Greeks. And hey, I like the ancient Greeks, but, if you have no connection to them, how are you going to remember the things that you're supposed to remember to go forward? So,
My personal history is full of ancient Greeks, at least on my mother's side. And I like them too. But this is something they never got, in the education system. Kids tell me all the time, especially in tutoring classes. Kids will tell me things like they go for this private tutoring thing because the state mandates it, right? But when you get there, someone will say, give you an example of something and go, do you understand it? And if they say yes, I understand it, then they will leave you alone. And, when you're 16, 17, 18 years old, being left alone in a public learning situation is what you strive for.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? The last thing you want is attention, especially attention that says you don't understand.
yeah.
Okay? So what you're suddenly doing now is you're giving them all of that compassion.
Yes. Not only compassion, but also relationship.
Yeah.
So yes, I can be compassionate, but we want our tutors to actually be helping our students to move forward. So it's more than just compassion. It is a very realistic, let's figure out how we're going to move forward.
And the people that you see now, you're pulling out of the Trenton area, which I assume is like many, many other urban areas right now, in that it's really all a melting pot again. It's people from many different cultures.
Yes. In fact, I just looked it up. 22% of the adults that live in Mercer County were born in another country.
Really, 22% in Mercer
22%.
County.
And that ends up being about 80,000 people. And Mercer County's not that big. Yeah. And of all different levels of ability to communicate. And some people, they have no problem at all, and that's wonderful. But many people are coming into this country to have a better life, for their families and their children. And so they come here, and what happens is they plug straight into working. And you will find that many of the immigrants here in this area, they're very hard workers. Our students, most of them are employed. And so they are working really hard. And what we find is after they've been here for 15, 20 years, they say, oh, well, maybe I should learn how to speak English too.
Yeah, well, because I'm sure they can get the backbreaking jobs. If they're hard workers, right? If they're hard workers and they have any kind of hand skill at all, they can get the job that will break your body,
Exactly.
you know? But then 10, 15 years down the road, they look around and they see other people making more money not working so hard, but they don't have
Exactly.
the skill set. Yeah.
Or something happens, some crisis happens, and they can't go on to the next job because they have no skills and they have no means of acquiring the skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're out there listening, this is something that you could be involved in New Jersey or anywhere where you live.
Yes.
This is a noble cause, and if you're looking for something to do that, it sounds to me like it doesn't require 40 hours a week. It's not a full-time job.
No,
for
absolutely not.
Volunteer tutors, right?
Yes, it's about 2 to 4 hours per week. We will train you, so you don't have to be a former teacher. You don't have to have any kind of educational background. We will train you with upfront training, and then we will support you as you work with your students. We ask you to meet with a student once a week, usually in a public library, but in any public place, for about 2 hours. Now, then you have to spend some time preparing for that because, as I said, you know, we're doing what our students actually need. And so it's about a 4 hour per week commitment.
Yeah, 4 hour per week leaves you time to be an Age Out Angel and a CASA. You can
That's
you can
right.
be all three, and you'll have plenty of retirement time, you know, kind of left over after that. So you're the program director,
I am.
right? So does that mean you're sort of wearing all the hats? You're supervising the training of the volunteers
Yes.
and the students to some degree, like.
I meet with the students. I
Yeah.
help do the intake. I don't do all of it. I manage most of it. But it's, you know, with a small organization like ours, you know, at any moment I have to pick up that hat and do whatever needs to be done.
I wonder if the training's different, like depending on locale. Yeah, I'm sure you talk with other people throughout the state and in other states as well. Is the training that you do for volunteers different here than it is for, say, North Jersey or Texas?
Only in the sense that some areas will concentrate more on how you work with a native English speaker to develop their reading and writing skills, as opposed to how you would work with a non-native English speaker to develop listening, speaking, as well as reading and writing skills. But
So-
other than that, the training is very similar.
And so you work with a lot of English as a second language.
Yes, about 85% of
85%.
our students are non-native English speakers.
All right,
yeah.
so that's a very high percentage.
Right, but some of them don't read and write in their own language. So they are also learning how to read and write, but they're doing it in a second language.
Oh, how about that? So
Yeah.
whoa, that can't be easy. You know, I have to tell you this, that every time I try to learn Spanish, I fail. Every single time. And the reason I fail, I know why. It's not my fault. The reason that I fail is because I have no one to speak Spanish with me. I mean, no one who actually knows Spanish. I could find, you know, some other knucklehead from the class who speaks as poorly as I do. But that's not what I'm looking for. I need a buddy, Catherine. Man, you may know someone you can hook me up with. That's why that's why I've invited you here tonight.
Yeah.
I need somebody who needs to learn English as badly as I need to learn Spanish.
Hey,
Okay?
come to our training program, we'll get you hooked up. Can I tell about the training program?
Sure,
Because
please do,
one
yeah.
of my objectives in coming on the radio tonight is to recruit tutors. We have over 150 people who have called our office asking for help, and we can't help them because we don't have enough tutors. So starting for 4 consecutive Saturdays, starting January 26th, we will be having a tutor training workshop. And in this 4 Saturdays, we hope to give you sort of a foundation that you can build upon as you then start to help an adult learn to read and write better. Please join us. We really need you, and not just we need you. The community needs you to help these people. So if you are interested, can I give the telephone number?
Oh,
or should-
absolutely.
yes,
Give the
please.
phone number, give the website, give your home phone.
Our telephone number is 609-587-6027. I'm Catherine Mitch. It's just C, Mitch, as in sing along with, at literacyNJ.org. And I hope you'll contact us because we need you.
Absolutely. And this is something that I think the training for this
Yes.
might be something that's sort of worthwhile to take, because I'm sure a part of that training is a kind of an understanding of the other cultures
Yes, yes.
that you'd be working with, right?
Two things. It
Yeah.
helps you to understand how to connect with another person. Later on, you're going to talk about a person from another culture in our own American culture, right? So it's not always a foreign culture.
Right.
But our training helps you learn how to connect, and it also helps you learn how to take a person's goals and figure out how to reduce them down into steps which the person can take and then ultimately achieve their goals.
Right, right. Okay, so I want to close out this segment with a topic of absolute misery. We'll leave on a low note.
Oh, great.
It's talking about the children who graduate high school and have like 5th grade reading skills or 6th grade reading skills. You see that.
Sure.
Why? Why? How?
Well,
How is that possible? This is America.
Well, you don't only learn from the teacher, and you don't only learn from the books that are put in front of you. In fact, your most important teacher are your parents. And if your parents don't read and write, then it's going to become very difficult for you to read and write. Just think about it. If you are a parent and you love your children and you want your children to love and respect you back, but you can't read, are you going to have books in your house? No, it's just too threatening. And so what we talk about is the cycle of inherited low literacy. And if you don't read and write yourself, it means that your vocabulary is not very big. It means that your world sometimes is kind of small because you can't understand information that is all around you to tell you more about the world. And then the world becomes very threatening. And when it's threatening, then you tend to turn into yourself and into your safe community. And that's why you have whole communities of low literacy as well. How do you break out of it? Well, I believe that if we can go into some of the elementary schools and work with the parents of the elementary schools children and develop what I would like to call a real family literacy program, where the children are also learning, getting skills for reading and writing, but at the same time that they are learning, their parents are in another section of the room and they are learning as well.
Yeah.
And that is what is going to inspire a child to want to grow and learn themselves. When they see their mother and their father spending time on learning, they're going to say, oh, this is worthwhile.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do this too.
Wow. Catherine Mitch, ladies and gentlemen, a lady who knows how to take a negative concept and turn it into a beautiful thought. Catherine, thanks so much for coming. Again, say the website again.
Yes, it is literacyNJ.org. And our telephone number for here in Mercer County. And by the way, there are tutor training workshops happening throughout the state. So it's not just ours on January 26th. But our telephone number is 609-587-6027.
Literacy program is something that is so worthwhile to get involved in, and wherever you're listening from right now, I know we have listeners in Sweden and the Ukraine. I'm sure they have people there who need help too. There are literacy programs everywhere. Be a volunteer for Literacy New Jersey or Literacy wherever you are. Catherine, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much
I
for
hope
having
you come
me.
back and tell us how things work out at some future time, okay?
I would love to.
Will you do that? We're going to take a short break. When we come back, Jessica Jamie Walters will be my guest, and her story is so compelling you are not going to want to move a muscle. So take 45 seconds right now, hit that share button on Facebook, make popcorn as fast as you can, and come right back to the radio. Don't go away. And we are back. Before we go further, I do need to thank all the people who made donations to Age Out Angels this week. We thank you so very much for your generosity. And by the way, if you have an employee giving fund or matching gifts foundation associated with your place of work, we would certainly appreciate your contacting us and telling us how we can participate in that. Private message me on Facebook or email to greg@ageoutangels.org. And I want to remind everyone that even though the holiday season is over, you can still donate to Age Out Angels every time you make a purchase from Amazon. All you have to do is designate Age Out Angels to be your Amazon Smile designee, and a portion of your payment will go to Age Out Angels without it costing you one single penny more. I can make it easy for you to designate Age Out Angels as your Amazon Smile recipient. All you have to do is contact me either via Facebook or greg@ageoutangels.org, and I can send you a link that will take you directly to our designation. And finally, I want to give a special shout out to a lovely, lovely singer by the name of Stephanie Chin, who I happened to meet at an organization that I belong to called the Einstein Alley Musicians Collaborative, which is just a fancy long term for Princeton. That means Princeton. Einstein Alley, get it? And I met Stephanie there, and she's just a fabulous singer. Like, I think her website is songbird.com. And you can hear things. But anyway, for her birthday, she created a Facebook donation page for Age Out Angels and got us several $100s so that we can use to help children. So Stephanie, we love you, love you, love you, and we thank you. And that's totally separate from the fact that you are just amazingly talented, and people should go to your shows as often as they can. Also, just a quick final note, I'm looking for a twin bed for a young lady who needs one, who's sleeping on a mattress, on a blow-up pillow on a floor in Trenton. If anyone out there has a twin bed that they'd like to donate, please contact me on Facebook or greg@ageoutangels.org. I just need one. I don't need like 50 beds. I need one bed. So I'm thinking out of 40,000 people out there listening, we ought to be able to get one bed. Sitting next to me is someone who I also met at the Einstein Alley Musicians Collaborative. See how I did the tie-in there?
Yes, great segue.
Pretty well done, huh?
Yeah.
This is Jessica Jamie Walters. Jessica, welcome.
Thank you.
the
It's
Age
great
Out
to
Angels
be here. It's a privilege
Radio
to be
Hour.
here.
Well, it's great to have you. Jessica, I should just let you know, in the interest of total transparency, is one heck of a dobro player. And if you don't know what a dobro is, look it up. D-O-B-R-O. It's a resonator guitar, right?
Yes,
Is really what it is.
that's its technical
but that,
name.
yeah, that doesn't tell you really kind of what it does. It's a beautiful instrument, and she plays it so well.
Thank you.
But that's not your whole story.
No, it's not. No.
Is it?
It's not even part of it.
Yeah. So you started life as a male.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. And when was it in your life that you first realized that might not be who you are?
To be quite candid, I would say in my early 20s when I started sneaking women's clothes to try on.
Okay.
And I didn't know what that meant. I just knew. I thought I was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even back to my teens. You know, it's hard to remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to cross dress, and I have for decades before I actually came out as transgender.
Yeah. Now, were there times in your life when you paid a consequence when you paid a price for being a cross-dresser?
No, because I wasn't out in public or anything
Yeah.
with it. Maybe a couple relationships might have been taxed with it a little bit or by
Okay.
it, I should say. And but basically, no. I incorporated various levels of cross-dressing into even relationships that I had. Two marriages.
Two marriages.
The marriages didn't break up because of that. There was other, other
yeah,
issues, but that was always looked at as something kind of fun to experiment with
Okay.
in the relationships I was in. But as time went by, I realized that my feelings were, I used to lay around and go, it'd be so much easier if I was a girl. And that was weird, honestly, for me to feel that way. I
Yeah.
would wondered why. Why do I think that? I didn't know what transgender was. I think way back in the day, that wasn't a word. And I knew what it's a slurry word, but a drag queen or a transvestite was after a while. I
Yeah.
knew what that was. And I knew I wasn't that. But I didn't fit in as a man. And I never shared this with any of my friends at the time. I had male friends.
You had male
Oh,
friends.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Female friends, male friends, people I played music with, But I never talked to anybody about it.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what to say. It was embarrassing. Let's face it.
Uh-huh.
I had some very feminine feelings, and I looked like a tough guy. I looked like a biker. I had a long chin beard, Harley Davidson T-shirts and bandanas, and I mean,
You have to come back with pictures.
I will. I actually will. That would be fun. I should
Yeah.
have brought one.
Yeah.
But no, I look like I won't call myself a biker, but I do like motorcycles, and I looked the part.
Uh-huh.
But I would act like a tough guy, but I wasn't.
Okay.
Okay, it didn't work. I had some very rough, tough friends, and I would try to fit into that, and usually get my butt kicked, and it just didn't work out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you had been more revealing, there would have been consequences. You would have lost friends.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So what we're talking about here is cross-dressing and stuff like that. Now, that's sort of a separate issue. We have
Yes,
to, if
it
we
is.
understand the LGBTQ plus world today, right? We have to break it down into its segments. And what you're describing right now is how you want people to perceive you and how you see yourself.
Right.
And these are things that are totally apart from sexuality.
Oh, transgender has nothing to do with sexuality. It's a totally different thing.
Okay. So when a person meets someone who is transgender, okay?
Okay?
All right. People in America, they want to know.
Yeah,
They want to know stuff, and yet frequently it's none of their damn business.
that's true.
So what are they to do? How do you want people to ask you what they're dying to know?
Okay, that's a good question. Very good question. First of all, privately.
Ah, okay. Not at a table with eight.
Yes, you don't do that, in a public setting. That's disrespect.
Right.
That's just a no-brainer. If they said, hey, I just have a question for you, and I was wondering if you're transgender, and then you take it from there, because they came to you respectfully. They came to you wanting knowledge, not to put you down.
Okay.
And that's something transgender people have to realize too, is that just because somebody doesn't get it, it doesn't mean that they're bad people.
Uh-huh.
And some people can get very, very angry when they're transgender or gay or lesbian or whatever the spectrum is. And I always try to tell people, treat people the way you want to be treated. So as a transgender female, I try to have empathy and compassion for people that want to know who I am. And once they ask me, I enjoy talking about it, because honestly, I'm very proud I'm so proud and empowered to be a transgendered woman.
It took you a lot of years to come to that.
Oh
though,
yeah,
didn't it?
63 years.
63 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So now we're using the word transgender like everyone knows what that exactly means. Does transgender refer to an outward appearance or a physical change? Did you have operations and things like that, and
The-
hormones stuff?
Okay. The operation part is something that it's important for some transgendered women, but not all of them. It's called gender dysphoria. In other words, you're uncomfortable with the gender that you were assigned at birth. You know,
Yeah.
you have a penis, you're a man. You have a vagina, you're a woman.
Right.
Okay, that's not always the way it is. So, gender identity is different than that. So, if you're dysphoric, you're not comfortable with what you were assigned.
Right.
You know. So,
So do you need to take a little break here? I mean, this is
no.
heavy.
It's when being transgender, okay, is it's like, for me it's who I am. It's something that's inside, and you don't choose to do it.
Yeah.
And when I came out at 63, I cried like a baby. I came out to myself first, of course.
Of relief.
Yes. It was like an emotional time bomb went off.
Wow.
I looked in the mirror and try to think about this. Really, it's important.
Yeah.
I looked in the mirror for the first time in 63 years. I could cry now and saw a real person looking back at me. I never had that as a male. So a transgender person identifies on the other side of the spectrum, or maybe partway through it. Gender fluid, there are androgynous, there's all
Right.
different.
Questioning the whole.
Yes, that's all part of it. You don't have to have an operation. You don't have to go on hormone therapy. It's a state of mind between your ears. That's transgender. That
Okay.
is how you identify. All the rest is what people need to do to make themselves feel complete. I wasn't going to share this, but I will, just in case somebody out there needs to know. I didn't have an operation, sexual reassignment surgery. I don't plan on it because, well, there's health reasons for me at my age.
Right.
But also, when I look at myself in the mirror, I know I'm a woman, and I don't need to change anything as far as down below.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Would I like bigger boobs? Yeah. I mean, yeah, what girl wouldn't? But, and I'm working on that. I am on hormone replacement therapy, but I had to go through a living hell to get on it because of health conditions.
Right. Right.
And could I segue into something real quick?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Something I want to tell any youth out there. If you are considering going on the black market or anything without a real doctor checking you out, do not do it. And I'm going to tell you why. And I'm a case in point. Okay, I never did that. But I found out that I had a mini stroke. I found out that I had hormonal imbalances that would, if I had gone on hormone therapy on my own, the dosages could have been through the roof. I could have died, and I probably would have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't do it. It's
Yeah.
very important. Don't do that. You need to be monitored every step of the way if you're going to go on hormone replacement therapy. It took me a year to get fully on it. The spironolactone, which is a testosterone blocker, I was able to go on a little sooner. And then a year later, I finally got to go on estrogen, and I do a shot myself twice, every 2 weeks. But the first few shots, then they monitored me. My estrogen level was through the roof.
Huh.
I reacted very quickly to that treatment. So that's what you don't know. That's why you don't fool
Right.
around with this. You don't want to don't take a chance. It's not worth it.
Well, talking to the young people, I mean, you can certainly imagine young people in a position of wanting to be secretive,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And you know, being a little bit less informed than we might be at our age, and chasing down, you know, some pathway that's not certified,
Right.
right? And so that's what you're trying to prevent.
Exactly.
Is someone falling down that rabbit hole.
Don't worry about the hormones, the surgery, and stuff at first, because that's up to you later on. Get established as a transgendered person.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do all that. If you believe you're transgender and you say that to yourself, you're transgender. You know. You know, they know.
Yeah.
And it's just too dangerous to mess around with.
I understand.
Yeah.
Now, you and I are similar ages.
Yeah. 66.
So right, and I'm 64. So although you look younger than me, which actually kind of pisses me off a little, but that's okay.
Oh, wow.
I'll get over
it's
it.
the estrogen, honey.
But the point is, when we were growing up, I certainly know that in the circles that I grew up in, anything other than straight up male female appearance, sexuality, whatever, anything other than the traditional was at best wrong, you know, and at worst an abomination to God. You know, so you could be wrong or burn in hell, take your choice.
Sure.
Did you grow up in that same kind of an environment? Was part of what held you back?
I honestly didn't know I was a woman inside. I didn't know that. But I do believe it would have held me back. And I believe when I was under the control of my parents, that definitely would have held me back, because I'm just going to be honest, my father would have tried to beat it out of me.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense in the most bizarre way
Yeah.
possible.
I mean, in the 70s, we had gay friends that played music and stuff, so we weren't really judgmental. But, and this is in no way to negate the hassles of being gay, but for a transgendered female, if you want to live out what you feel inside, eventually you're going to want to dress differently.
Yeah.
And that's the sore thumb that sticks out.
Uh-huh.
You know, where
Yeah, yeah.
where a lot of lesbian women, if they dress more male, let's just say if that was their thing to do, they're not going to get noticed. A gay person is gay. They don't change the way they look. When you're trans and you come out with it in public, you're
Yeah.
going to change the way you look.
Right.
And that's hard to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it wasn't, but for most people, it's very hard.
Well, so do you have to get a whole new group of friends and associates and stuff like that? Do you have to change jobs? I mean, to what extent do you have to ease society's view of you?
I'm not the right one to speak of that totally, because I didn't have to go through school what these poor kids have to go through.
Yeah.
And I didn't live at home. And I didn't really give a darn what people thought about me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I've been involved in bluegrass music since the 70s, and that's kind of a right-wing crowd.
Bit of a redneck.
Yeah, not all of it,
population
but
there.
some of
I
it.
mean, there's some of the greatest players in the world are bluegrass players,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's
So
associated with the farm.
when I first came out to myself and some close friends, I got totally accepted, and it felt wonderful. It took me a year to come out to the bluegrass community. I was going there dressed male,
Yeah, yeah.
and it felt terrible. I felt like a phony. I would go to jams, you know, and the whole thing, and I'd still be this person, but I was struggling terribly inside. I was like, I can't keep doing this. But the time wasn't right. It wasn't just fear. I just knew I needed to evolve more as a transgendered woman before I could really address what they might say to me. I wanted to be stronger, real strong.
Yeah.
And one day it just came to me. It was like, it's time. And I did. And I have to tell you, the response was incredibly positive.
Oh.
Surprisingly so.
Yeah, you would think jaws would drop.
You would think people were shocked because they know this other biker-looking person.
You're
okay?
a different person,
Yeah, this is totally
and
different.
really totally different,
Yeah.
right?
And they were shocked, but a couple people said, well, you'll always be my friend, no matter what. But I lost them. And they were, unfortunately, both my best friends. So that was a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
But one of them I know is going to come around.
Okay.
He's still very civil to me and, very great with music if we do end up playing together. So that'll be fine. But everybody else was totally like, we're so proud of you. I could never do what you did at your age to come out and tell everybody. I mean, it was really, I cried a lot. It was really beautiful. So kudos to my friends,
Yeah, I think you're very
Yeah.
fortunate in that regard.
Oh, I do
so,
too.
So, with the couple of minutes that we have left, what advice do you have to give to young people? Because kids are going through this in their high
I know.
school pubescent age.
I know. First of all, I want to say it emphatically. We are not freaks. We are not mentally ill. There's nothing wrong with us. We, I believe, are beautifully created, beautifully made to be here for a reason. And that's to help other people. That's what we really all do. That's what I think the humanism is helping each other. Yeah. And so there's nothing wrong with you. Get help. If you're struggling with it, go find a support group. There's things all over on the internet. Find that. Talk to your parents and get them to go to PFLAG is a great organization who deals with parents and children. Go there. Talk to your guidance counselor if you're in school. Most of them are trained now with this, to deal with this. Yeah. You're not a freak. If I could just say that again, there's nothing wrong with you. You're a beautiful person. Don't be afraid. Be yourself.
Yeah. A little round of applause in the studio if you can't hear it. Well spoken. You're not a freak, and you're not alone.
No, you're not alone.
Right. And I have to tell you that I mean, growing up, it wasn't just homosexual and transgender that had a negative connotation. We were white. We were supposed to be naturally at odds with black people who were supposed to be naturally at odds with us.
Yeah.
And I always found that music was a tremendous equalizer.
Yes.
Of those things. I mean, I went to a high school that was predominantly black, and I loved playing music. With people who had a different take on what music was, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's really how you learn.
Sure.
Right? To
Yeah.
get out there and do that sort of thing. So, we say the white cats all want to play Motown and the black cats all want to play psychedelic music. And we all came together at Jimi Hendrix, at one point.
My favorite, yeah.
And so, so now all of a sudden, all of this sort of negativism didn't exist at all.
That's right.
Because there's absolutely no point in doing that. When you're sharing music and everything together, you feel the share.
That's right.
Right.
Music will conquer the world.
Yeah,
Music's
there
going to
you go.
make the whole world a better place. And young people, it's in your hands.
Yeah.
It's in your hands.
The challenge is put out there. Jessica Jamie Walters is my guest tonight, and I hope you'll come back and at other times and
I would love to. I
us.
feel honored to be here.
tell us more.
I will.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Just a couple of quick notes before we depart. I just want to say that I'm meeting way too many youth lately, especially who are aging out of foster care without a well-conceived transition plan. And this to me is very, very, very horrible. I'm learning about people who are going to age out in 2 months and 3 months and 4 months. And don't have a plan. And so what will happen is that they will essentially age out into homelessness. And that's what creates the foster care to prison pipeline. That's exactly how it's created. And there has to be something that we can do about that because it is so very wrong. And I've been trying to figure it out. Like, I thought that kids were supposed to have a transition plan, but the question is whether or not, is it a law in New Jersey that they have to have a transition plan, or is it Department of Children and Families policy? If it's policy and they age out without a transition plan, there's no consequence. If it's law and they age out without a transition plan, then there's consequence. Then there's grounds for damages. So that's something that we're going to be looking into more and more. But
if you are out there listening, the point of this is very simply this. If you are out there listening when someone ages out of foster care, one thing that they don't have a lot of is money. And if you can talk to maybe their caseworker or something like that and find a way in your heart to give them a room or something in your house with some kitchen privileges and some laundry privileges and do it with your eyes open, make sure, that you protect your possessions and stuff like that, because it's just like bringing any stranger into your house. But if you can do that and help a child get along, that would just be wonderful. And so think about that, okay? And you don't have to go through all the stuff that you have to go through to be a foster parent. Anyway, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another hour talking about youth who should matter more in our political and economic discourse than they do now. And we thank you so much for tuning in and maybe helping us spread the word. Again, we offer humble thanks to Hamilton Radio, to my most excellent guests, Catherine Mitch from Literacy, New Jersey, and Jessica Jamie Walters. Thanks to our engineer, Doc G, our producer, Robin. Music provided by Kurt Seldom-Ridge, owner-operator of the Cave Rehearsal Recording Space in Pennsylvania. Our webmaster is Carmen Garcia-Valera, and our social media specialist is Bailey Braverman. Join me next Monday. Next week is January 14th, when my guest will be Nicole Kilberg, who will blow the lid off the advocacy for children in foster care in Dutchess County, New York. So until then, let's make this week the best week ever. Have a great evening.